On June the 2nd, 2019, 3 people would sit down for an intimate family dinner at one of Stellenbosch's oldest wine estates, Louisenhof. Now, by the end of the dinner, one would be dead, the other would be a witness to murder, and the third would be charged with murder. This is the story of Stefan Smit, a Stellenbosch wine farmer who was brutally murdered in his own home, and the woman who is accused of his murder is currently standing trial is his wife, Zurenah. Now, Stellenbosch is known for its world-famous wines, its historic farms, as well as its deep secrets. Louiesenhof Wine Estate, one of South Africa's oldest, built in around 1700, lay a deadly web of greed, betrayal, lust, and bloodshed. This is the tale of the murder of Stefan Smit.
Cape Agriculture Minister Ivan Meyer has called on the police to intensify the search for the killers of a Stellenbosch wine farmer who was gunned down on his farm, Louisenhof. 62-year-old Stefan Smit is the second farmer to be killed within less than a month in the province. Carmel Lachenberg-Roberts reports.
62-year-old Stefan Smit is the second farmer to be killed on his farm within less than a month in the Western Cape. The Louiesenhof Wine Estate owner had been battling land grabs on his farms and had turned to the courts to have the illegal occupants from the neighbouring informal settlement removed.
Political irresponsible statements by certain political parties have absolutely contributed to this increase in farmer tax, specifically as it relates to expropriation without compensation.
Calls for government intervention have been made by the agriculture sector in the province.
I'd just like to see the rural safety plan being implemented. We've been waiting for how long now for that, and in that plan organised agriculture did contribute, and we would like to see that plan being implemented now.
It's been reported that Smit was shot in front of his wife and a friend and died on the scene. No arrests have been made. Police are investigating a case of murder. Carmel Lachenberg-Roberts, SABC News, Stellenbosch.
Stefan Smit was 62 years old. He was a respected winemaker. He worked with the land in an ecological way in order to produce wine. And he was the proud owner of Louisenhof, which is a wine estate. And this farm had been in his family since 1896. And wine had been produced at the farm since around the 1700s and around 1701. And to many, he was a kind man, a traditional man who loved his vines more than anything else. He had a real passion for winemaking. You could say that it was something that was in his blood. But in the years before his death, things around Stefan began to unravel. Now, this starts with an issue that is very controversial in South Africa, which is land. So in 2018, Louisenhof was invaded by settlers who set up shacks on his property.
We decided to take our shacks to come to build here because we don't have the money to pay the rent. Even the owners where we are staying, they don't want us back because we move everything, we move the furniture. Even our child who is staying there, we don't know now where we're supposed to go. No, the people arrested, they didn't do anything. It's only the policemen. They move us with a force. We say to them, we're not here to fight. We are here for the rights. We sit down and I think 4 women, they didn't know how to run, and then they just get them to put in the van.
Because as move sizabalwela abantu until bafumane indawo zokuhlala. Now njengoba besenza lento bayenza abawachithayo apha ebusuku bazophinda abantu babeke benze show into bana la 24 hours bayahlala. Asimove apha.
This is the structures that is not going to be demolished because the people are staying in it. The families are staying in it. And so they will receive the court order, I think, by tomorrow, if not the end of the week. And then the court case will be the 21st of August. That is what we were informed by, I think it's the sheriff that was here.
He hired security in the form of his wife's daughter's boyfriend. So in 2005, Stefan had married Zurenah Smit, and he already had a previous marriage with another woman, which he had children with, and he and Zurenah, they did not have any children, but Zurenah had a daughter of her own. Now, when her daughter came to come and visit them at Louiesenhof, she stayed in one of the cottages, and she brought with her new boyfriend, who she met up with on Facebook. And this man would become a central figure in the controversy that was to follow. His name is Bradley van Eysland, and he is a former detective. He served, I believe, 25 years in the police force. He was a police captain at one stage, and he had exited the police force, like so many police professionals do, in order to enter private security. Now, he had a private security company, and operating with him in that private security was his half-blood brother, Derek Carl Sate, as well as Derek's brother-in-law, whose name was Stephen Damon. Stefan, knowing the connection of Bradley from his wife's daughter, decided that he was going to hire him to protect his family until this whole issue of the land dispute was resolved. We know that Stellenbosch municipality got involved and were making offers to buy the land from Stefan that the settlers had settled on. But in the meantime, Stefan wanted to keep his family safe.
We are owning the land. The land is belong to us. The land was stolen by the white. We took the land by us.
Because they're building the small houses for our family, so we can't fit in. So now that is why you are here. We are fighting for the land. We need the places for us. Municipal of Stellenbosch must give us the houses.
The case imiselwe for undokba sigqibezele i-consultation le. Funeke sibe neenkcukacha zawo wonke umuntu ohlala phaya Azania.
As we are the community of Azania, we're going to be here going in numbers to show the support of our lawyer, because we want to win that land, because the land is belong to us, not belong to the white. The white were the ones who are stealing the land. So we're claiming the land back to us. We are staying there, we're not going anywhere. So we want to support our lawyer to fight for us.
But we know that inside his own home, tension was rising too. His second wife, Zurenah Smit, 59 years old, 59 years old, but inside his home, tension was rising too. We know that his marriage to his wife, Zurenah Smit, who he had married in 2005, was becoming unhappy. I don't know if the marriage ran its course, but what we do know is that in 2018, money went missing from Stefan's safe. Around 200,000 rand was stolen, along with 3 Kruger Rands and 2 guns. These guns were not registered to Stefan, they were registered to his late mother as well as his ex-wife. And this concerned Stefan because he was the only one who had access to the safe. It was where he stored all his important documents. This will become important later. And it was also the only place, and he carried the safe key around with him at all times in a moon bag around his waist. He wouldn't even trust his wife with the safe keys. And shortly after the break-in occurred and in the safe, Stefan changed his will. We know that a new will was recorded in December 2018, and we know that a new will was recorded in 2018. He had the farm administrator witness it, and in that will, he cut his wife out of his fortune. The only thing that he left her was life rights to a retirement home flat in a Stellenbosch retirement village. That's the only thing he left her. He cut her out of everything else, and everything else was going to basically go to his family. He had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and we know that in this previous that he had an extensive investment portfolio, a loan which was 60 million rand, as well as all his cash, and Louisenhof itself, which was passed down through a trust. But things started looking up for Stefan. We know that him and the municipality of Stellenbosch had reached an agreement in order to sell that land that the settlers were on, and because of this, he was feeling a bit more relieved, even though his wife told him that she had seen people in the bushes around their house. He had extensive security set up. He had CCTV, he had a double fencing system, he had electric fences. All of these things, though it was happening, he felt better about it because essentially the settlers were getting what they wanted. Stefan was getting what he wanted, and he was considering packing up and moving overseas. And he told a lot of people that he wanted to go and live in Germany, and he was not going to take his wife Zurenah with him. His life would come to an end on that fateful Sunday evening on the 2nd of June 2019. Dinner was being served at Louisenhof, and present at the dinner party was Stefan, his wife Zurenah, and a 77-year-old family friend visiting from Switzerland, Amelia Anneman. According to the witness, Amelia, Zurenah was acting strange that night. She tried to get Stefan to leave the house a number of times. According to Amelia, she asked Stefan to go check on the dog that was outside. The dog's name was Shiraz, and he said, "The dog is fine, I don't hear anything." And we also know that then she asked him to go and fetch some wine from one of the outside cellars. And he said, "There's enough wine on the table. I'm not going to drink anymore. It's Sunday. I'm working tomorrow." And then the last attempt Zurenah made, allegedly, to get him to leave was when they were serving soup, and she asked him to go fetch some sweet wine for Amelia, the guest, because that is the wine that she likes. Amelia then replied that no, she's had enough. It doesn't really go with the soup. Now, on her way out, Zurenah was walking Amelia to the door, and she allegedly opened the door. And when she opened the door, she said to Amelia, "Hey, listen, I'm going to make you some lovely tea. Why don't you come back and have some tea?" And Amelia thought, okay, you know what? You're insisting, so I will go. And that's what Amelia did. She followed Zurenah back to the kitchen, and she went to go sit down at the dinner table where Stefan was. And while Zurenah was busy in the kitchen making tea, 3 armed gunmen burst through a door. Now, according to Amelia, who is the eyewitness, she said that these 3 men, they were wearing white masks, and they shouted something in Afrikaans that she couldn't understand because she doesn't speak Afrikaans. And then they opened fire. 3 bullets were fired, and one struck Stefan Smit in the head, another in the neck, and another in the chest. And according to her, he was lying down on the ground and his feet were still moving, and that 3rd shot was fired, and then he finally stopped moving. Then the masked men, they grabbed the handbag, they tried to tie her up and remove her watch. They couldn't get her watch off, so she said, "I'll give it to you," and they let her give it to them, and then they fled. Now, she called for Zurenah to come out, and Zurenah came out of the kitchen, and Zurenah checked on Stefan, and he was already gone at that point. Now, the suspicious thing about this is that in the next room, there was supposed to be those bodyguards. You know that bodyguard, Bradley van Eysland? He was allegedly watching TV in the next room. And when Zurenah burst in to the room, Bradley was there. And according to Bradley, he told everyone that he did not hear any shots. And according to reports, then the other 2 security guards then entered into the house. One of them was tall, Stephen Damon, and the other one is Derek Sate. And Amelia says that she got another fright because she thought that the gunmen were back. And for a second, she almost thought as though she recognized one of the security officers as the gunman. Now, police were called and police would immediately notice that something strange was going on here. Firstly, there was no forced entry, and Zurenah would go as far as to blame the whole affair on Amelia and say that the reason that the door was left open was because of Amelia, because remember, they walked to the door to open it, to leave, and then she went back to make tea. And she would say that if that hadn't happened, her husband would still be alive. And police were immediately suspicious because there were no signs of a break-in. The CCTV cameras showed no one coming in from outside the house. So someone in the house must have committed the crime. And also the cash that was on Stefan, as well as his safe key and his valuables, they were not touched. And farm murders do occur in South Africa, and generally what happens with farm murders is that the houses are ransacked. This house was not ransacked, and people are sometimes tortured in order to find their valuables. And this was all very, very suspicious, and it would get even more suspicious coming up, because investigators would realize that this was not a robbery, it was an execution. And suspicion turned then inward to the people who had been present that evening, and they started looking at who had the most to gain. Now, Zurenah attended her husband's funeral, but she refused to attend the reading of the will because she said that it was not the correct will. And we know that a few days later, a new will would be found inside of Stefan Smit's Bible, and this will was made in 2019, so it supersedes the 2018 will. And in this will, which was certified, he left Zurenah everything. He left her Louisenhof, he left her his investment portfolio, and if this will was real, it would make Zurenah one of the richest women in Stellenbosch. But Stefan's daughters immediately became suspicious, and one of them filed an urgent application with the High Court. And after a lengthy court proceeding, it was determined that the new 2019 will was forged, that the signature there did not match Stefan's signature, and Zurenah was cut off from inheriting anything. But that's just not all. This would be the first in many blows for Zurenah, because she would be arrested, Stephen Damien and Derek Sate.
Now, let's move on to this story now. A twist in the case of murdered wine farmer Stefan Smit, as a family member of one of the accused has turned state witness. In addition, the victim's widow, Zurenah Smit, and her two co-accused now face even more charges in connection with his killing. Zurenah and private investigator Derek Sate are currently applying for bail. Smit, Sate and Stephen Demon were arrested in the past week and charged with Stefan's murder on the Louiesenhof wine farm last year. Demon has elected not to apply for bail. Nadine Theron has more.
Murder accused Zurenah Smit and Derek Sate have now also been charged with the theft and illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. This relates to two firearms that went missing from a safe on Louiesenhof wine farm in November 2018. Sate, a former detective, testified on Thursday that he was appointed by the farm that year to investigate several alleged attacks, thefts and death threats. He says he had identified persons of interest from Carri-Ann suburb in Stellenbosch. This after the victim, Stefan Smit's other farm, Watergang, was occupied by land invaders earlier that year. Smit sold that farm to the municipality last year.
Private investigator Derek Sate has been told the state has a very strong case against him and his co-accused. The state prosecutor revealed that his brother-in-law and co-accused Stephen Damon confessed that both he and Sate shot farmer Stefan Smit.
According to the state, Sate would have gained 2 million rand and a portion of the farm. One piece of evidence is a cell phone from which a death threat was sent to the farmer. It's emerged it was used by Sate in 2016. Sate, though, maintains his innocence. Meanwhile, Zurenah Smit's legal team says she suffers from medical conditions and wants to be hospitalized until her next court appearance. She'll be in the dock alongside Sahit on Monday on the firearm charges. The bail applications will continue on Wednesday. Nadine Theron, Stellenbosch.
Now, it wouldn't take long for Bradley van Eysland to turn state's witness. And he, in exchange for testifying against the other co-accused, he will receive indemnity against 12 charges. And there doesn't seem to be any love lost, because remember, the other two men who are charged alongside Zurenah are his half-brother, Derek Sate, as well as his half-brother's brother-in-law. Now, we know that this is his story and his side of events, so assign to it as much value as you will, because this is being told through his lens. Now, according to him, Zurenah allegedly asked him to kill her husband. And what happened was that he had a brief affair with Zurenah's daughter when they visited on the cottages, and then he met Stefan Smit, and then he started working as a bodyguard for the family. And while he was working as a bodyguard, him and Zurenah became very close. He said that in his own statement that he liked to look at her breasts, and even asked her what bra size she is, and was surprised when she answered. They consummated their relationship on a few occasions at various hotels, such as the Radisson Blu Hotel, and every time after they did the act, then Zurenah would allegedly ask him to kill her husband. And it didn't just stop then. She also asked him to help steal money from him. So remember that 200,000 rand that was stolen out of Stefan Smit's safe, along with the Krugerrands and the foreign currency. Well, according to Bradley van Eysland, he said that Zurenah approached him and asked her to help him rob her husband. And what they did is that he was on a prescription of sleeping tablets because of all his years in the police, and he gave her a strip of sleeping tablets, and she allegedly dosed her husband with 7 tablets. He passed out on one of the chairs in Louiesenhof's tasting room, and they switched the CCTV footage off, and she removed the moon bag that he carried those safe keys, and they opened the safe. She stole 250,000 rand allegedly, as well as 130,000 rand in foreign currency. And those were those 2 guns that were present in the safe. Remember, the one registered to Zurenah's mother-in-law, as well as Stefan Smith's ex-wife. And she allegedly gave the guns to Bradley and told him to get rid of them. We don't know if Zurenah was aware that she had been cut out of Stefan's new will. We know that the will was changed after the theft. So did Stefan suspect his wife having something to do with it? Maybe, but it does sound to me as though this marriage was coming to an end. We know that Stefan was planning on moving overseas, and he allegedly told Zurenah that she's not going to come with him. She can choose where she wants to go. He will pay for her. So it sounds as though this marriage was on its last legs. Now, according to Bradley, he was the one who was responsible for sending all those threats to Stefan, because he was also benefiting off of Stefan. We know that he was earning 100,000 rand a month from Stefan. He was taking 2,000 rand home a day for being the bodyguard, as well as 500 rand for each of the men that he employed. And this resulted in a lot of money. And Stefan was considering ending his contract because of the negotiations with the municipality at Stellenbosch. And it was decided that, his services were no longer needed. And in fact, this murder occurred 2 days before the contract ended. According to Bradley, they considered killing him in Stellenbosch, but they said that there was going to be way too many witnesses to do that, and it was settled that they would kill him in his family home in Louisenhof, but they had to have another witness there, and that is the reason why that family friend had been invited to dinner, and they had gone to even more nefarious means in order to commit this murder, because according to them, the family dog Shiraz had been put in an office to avoid attacking the intruders and leaving blood evidence, and Zurenah had set up the scene. According to Bradley, she had switched on an outside light when she was in the kitchen, which Bradley could see from the adjacent room that he was in, and this would signal the go that she was in the kitchen and out of harm's way, and that they could go ahead and commit their deed. We also know that she allegedly also gave him a missed call saying, hey, listen, this is the go ahead. Now, according to Bradley, him and Derek Sate and Stephen Damon, they dressed up, they put on their white masks, and they walked around the house, and then they entered through one of the doors. And according to him, he did not fire any of the shots that killed Stefan Smit, that it was either Stephen Damien or Derek Sate that did it. And another thing is that Zurenah had also allegedly told them not to aim for the head because there was a metal plate in there that Stefan Smit had from an accident that happened in Germany. So instead, they were told to aim for the chest and for the neck, but we know that he was shot in the head as well. Now, according to them, after they committed the act, according to Bradley, after they committed the act, they fled back into the security suit which he was in. They changed their clothes and they put it in a bag, and along with the guns. And I must add that one of the guns that were used in this act were linked to, I believe, one of the guns that had been stolen from the safe. And he had asked Zurenah to give him a little bit of time so that they could get changed quickly and put the guns away, and that is what she did. And it was only then did her and that eyewitness come banging on the door, and he said that he had not heard the shots. Now, we know that he has been in witness protection, but I don't know how much of Bradley's word that we can take his word with, I think, a pinch of salt, because the defense has raised some interesting things, mainly that he left witness protection in order to allegedly assault his wife outside of her workplace, and he allegedly stabbed her, and this was, after all of this occurred. And there have been some other interesting developments in this case. Stephen Damien, which was Derek Sate's brother-in-law, one of the co-accused, he died in prison on the 4th of July 2024, and his death was being investigated and so now we are down one co-accused, and the only two left on trial are Derek Sate, which is Bradley van Eysland's brother-in-law, and well as his ex-lover and the widow Zurenah Smit. Now, Zurenah Smit had also been accused of fabricating another will. So, according to reports from News 24, she is accused of fraud relating to her mother-in-law's will, that is Stefan Smit's mother, Martha Smit, and she died in June 2015 and made a will and signed with her executor in the 16th of March 2014. And then after her death, a document was found, signed the 31st of March 2014, and that was produced and sent to the executor, and that removed Stefan Smit from the will, and basically it left the grandchildren 150,000 rand each, and everything else was left to Zurenah. So that is something that she has also been accused of, and that is something that is very suspicious. We know that according to the state, they allege that Zurenah wanted to get her hands on the money. She wanted to get her hands on Louiesenhof, and she would do anything in her power to do it. So there have been a number of witnesses who have testified at the trial, which is currently ongoing, including the dinner guest from the day before. Her name is Sophia Baez. And according to her, Stefan was in a happy state. He was glad to get rid of that portion of the farm in which the settlers had settled on. And he was happy. And he was planning on going to Germany again and not taking Zurenah with him. And she says that shortly after the crime happened, she arrived on the scene. Zurenah called her and she arrived on the scene, and Zurenah stayed with her for some time. They slept in the same bed for a number of months together, and Zurenah was asking people to lend her money. She needed apparently 200,000 rand for this, money for that. And she said that the will that was going to be, she told buyers allegedly that the will that was going to be read at the funeral was not the correct one, and there was a new will that would be found. Now, we also heard testimony from the dinner guest that night, Amelia Alleman, and Amelia Alleman says that Zurenah's behavior was also suspicious, and also that behavior of her trying to get Smit to leave the house on all those occasions. Now, the state has also presented a bunch of forensic evidence, such as that Bradley would have been able to hear the shots from the room that he was in when they were fired. Remember, his story was that he did not hear the shots. And we also know that the administrative assistant also took the stand. Her name is Ingrid Joubert, and she was that witness on that official will that the High Court declared official. And in her testimony, Zurenah's defense accused her of taking Stefan Smit's ashes, as well as that dog Shiraz. According to her, Zurenah had told her that Stefan wanted to go and move to Germany, and that she had to go somewhere separate. She was not allowed to come with. And she also told her that Smit had accused her of having an affair with Bradley van Eysland, and had even said, why would she want to have a relationship with him? What could he offer her that he couldn't? Now, at the end of the day, a man is dead, his blood spilled in a family home that had been in his family for at least 200 years. And was this all for greed? We do not know, but the outcome of the trial still remains. The outcome of the trial is going to be decided soon. So let me know if you would like an update on what is happening with Zurenah. And the story, like I said, is something straight out of fiction. If someone wrote a book, I don't think anyone would believe it.